Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Hats podcast. I'm your host, Loren Feldman. This week, the tables are turned as I announce that I have sold 21 hats, and then take questions from Shawn Busse, Karen Clark-Cole, and Jay Goltz. The buyer is Toby Scammell, founder of Womply, which provides software services to small businesses and helped more than 1 million of them obtain Paycheck Protection Program loans. I will continue as editor-in-chief, but much of what the sale will mean for 21 Hats has yet to be determined, including, for example, and as we discuss here, whether we will keep the 21 Hats name. Meanwhile, Shawn, Karen, and Jay also talk about how Karen solves problems for her big tech clients and what smaller businesses can learn from her process. And Jay explains a change he's making to his 401k plan that he believes will make it fairer for all of his employees. Even in good times, owning and running a business can be a lonely pursuit. Our hope is that these weekly conversations will let owners know they are not alone in facing challenges. Same thing with our daily newsletter, the 21 Hats Morning Report, which highlights the most important news of the day for business owners and which you can subscribe to at 21hats.com, where you can also find transcripts of our podcast episodes and lots of other articles and interviews. Joining me this week on the podcast are regulars Shawn Busse, CEO of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. Karen Clark-Cole, who is CEO of Blink, a Seattle-based user experience research and design firm. And Jay Goltz, whose companies in Chicago include a picture frame business, Artist Frame Service, and a home furnishing store, Jason Home. The episode is titled, Why I Sold 21 Hats. Welcome, Shawn, Karen, and Jay. We're going to start today with something a little bit different. Today, we're going to talk about me. As the three of you know, and a few others do too, I have sold 21 hats. And I just want to start by noting that this is the second business associated with the 21 Hats podcast to be sold in the past year. Karen, you sold Blink last September for $94 million, which means the average sale price of a 21 Hats podcast business, let me finish, is now ever so slightly more than $47 million. And I think that's pretty darn impressive, don't you?
Oh my God.
It is.
Wow. Loren, you should be in marketing.
Thank you, everybody. While I did get paid something for the business, this is really more about being paid a salary and being given a budget to build 21 hats the way I've always wanted to. And even more importantly, I've been bought by somebody who runs a business that services small businesses and has literally more than 1 million customers, who will be introduced to what I've been doing and what I'm building. And for me, that's what makes this very exciting. Any questions?
You left out one of the best parts, and all of us are getting our salaries doubled with no tax consequences. That's true.
I was saving that big surprise, yes.
That's great. Congratulations, Loren.
Well, thank you.
I know that's been a multi-year, I don't want to say struggle, but it's difficult, right? It's always been a challenge.
Struggle's appropriate.
Or adventure. It's been an adventure.
Yeah, it has. And I've been consistently confident that there's a market for what we've been trying to do, and that when we connect with people, I get really favorable responses. I just haven't found enough people. And it was a little hard for me to see how doing this by myself, I was eventually going to be able to bridge that chasm and get to the point where I could start hiring employees and, really try to do this right. And this does solve that problem.
Does part of that budget allow you to hire a PR and marketing company to help you become famous?
Well, I don't know about the famous part, but...
No, I mean that in the best way. Like, you want people to know about you. That's the whole point. You don't want to be the best kept secret.
Absolutely. It starts with the fact that there are all these customers in-house that I will be exposed to at, very little cost. But yes, absolutely. PR and marketing is part of the deal.
Have you had a chance to envision what the team looks like that you want to build?
I have. I'm going to start by hiring some editors. The last couple of years, I've actually really enjoyed what I've done. I mean, it's been great getting up every morning, knowing that I can do whatever I think I should do. And now I'm going back to being an employee, and that won't quite be the same. But on the other hand, I have missed working with other people. And I mean, you guys have been great. It's not like I haven't had people to talk to, and it's not like I haven't had a sounding board. I have, and I've taken full advantage of that. But it's not the same thing as having a team. And I'm really looking forward to hiring some editors to work with me and bring fresh thinking to what I've been trying to do.
So is the new owner hands-on, hands-off? What does that look like?
Well, that's a great question, Karen. I don't think we're really going to know for sure for a while. I have to tell you, though, he's been great through this whole process. I mean, I feel as though he's been very generous with me. I feel like he has made clear that he's looking out for my interests and has wanted this to be something that I would be excited about doing. And he has voluntarily brought up what others might consider to be difficult topics, like, my independence. And he has assured me that he is not a content guy and that I will be in charge. Now, we'll find out where that line is actually drawn. And there's some things that, I mean, for example, here's a good one. I'd love to know what you guys think about this. He's not sure that we should keep the name 21 Hats. His perspective on that is, look, I like what you've done. It's great. You've got 5,000 people reading the newsletter or subscribe to the newsletter. But we want this to get much bigger and scale significantly. So we should pick the right name. And let's sit down and have that conversation. And I think it's hard to argue with that, although I have to admit that I'm kind of attached to the name. What were you going to say, Karen?
Well, don't the two of you sit down and figure out a name? Make sure you do research. Make sure you get help. Make sure you get feedback from all of your listeners, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I'll start with you guys.
And I would argue, why can't that name scale? It's fabulous. And you can make up any name, right? It's just what you put behind it that matters.
I still think it works because I think it describes what entrepreneurs do. They got 21 hats to wear, and I think you can go hire some branding agency and spend $100,000 and come up with something with a Z in it or ends in an O or something. So you're asking the wrong one. I think it's a great name.
This is your area, Shawn. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've renamed a number of companies, and we've also not renamed a number of companies. And I think Karen's instinct is spot on in that you really want to assess what kind of equity is in it already, and if there's strong affinity and there's equity, even in 5,000 people, I'll take 5,000 passionate fans who believe in the brand and know the brand over 1 million people who have no idea what it is any day. I think your customers are a great place to start in terms of an assessment of the brand versus kind of getting in a closet and deciding it's great or terrible.
And it's important, to my mind, it's important there's a story behind it, and you have a great story behind it. I mean, how many times do people say, what does that mean? I get that with Blink still. Like, what's the story behind it?
I like that aspect of it. I'm curious what you guys think. To me, most people get it pretty quickly. And the moment they do, it's almost like they feel like they're part of the club. It's like, oh, that's cool. They understand me. I understand them. Do you think that's meaningful?
Oh my gosh. That's like the most important thing. Having a story behind the brand that people can connect to and resonate with and have an emotional response to quickly. Man, that's gold.
I also think it's just plain insightful that, in fact, and Loren loves to argue with me about this, that number wasn't pulled out of thin air. I truly believe there are 21
we've had
hats.
This conversation.
I know. I'm going to say it again. Yeah. There's 21 hats to wear in business. I could give you the list, and there's not 50, there's not 10, there's 21 hats. Maybe there's 23, maybe there's 19, but 21's a good number. There's 21 hats. It works. Why waste time? So let me ask you a question. You said you had difficult conversation with them, so let me ask you this. You've put your heart and soul into this, as I have, and everyone else that's on here. So let me ask you, something goes different than he thinks. Maybe his business changes. Maybe he sells his business. Maybe this just doesn't get the traction you think. Where does that leave you at that point?
That's a great question. And that's another example of something that he brought up. And he said, you never know. Things go awry. And he promised me that if things didn't work out, he would just give me back all of the assets that I contribute.
I'm so excited we're having this conversation because now you'll have a documented, kind of piece of information where you can refer back to it. I mean, so many times business owners get together and form a partnership of some sort, and there's unspoken agreements, there's confusion, but everybody's all happy in the beginning. And then when things get hard or things change or desires change, these sort of early on agreements get forgotten. And this is a great opportunity to memorialize that. So what else have you agreed on? You mentioned editorial control, right? And from my understanding, one of the reasons you got out of like some really high profile publications is that, you felt like they were, really curtailing to larger businesses versus smaller businesses. Is that right?
I was bought by Toby Scammell, who is the founder of a business called Womply, which is a venture-backed business, but has been around about 10 years and really did something big during the pandemic where they figured out how to get PPP loans to very small businesses. And it was at a time when those businesses were really struggling. Banks weren't interested in doing those loans. Womply figured out a way to package those loans and make it very easy for the small businesses to apply and for the banks to approve, and got, literally more than 1 million small businesses loans. Many of them solo entrepreneurs, but most of them quite small. And, as a result, the issues that I had with previous employers will not be an issue this time.
Help us and the listeners understand kind of the financial incentive in that ecosystem. And then what's the financial incentive that you're going to be stepping into?
Well, the unfortunate thing, what happens with those publications is they traditionally have ended up chasing clicks. So, this is true wherever I've worked. The focus has been on trying to drive large digital audiences. And the way that often is done is by, with clickbait stories that kind of appeal to the lowest common denominator. You get a lot of stories along the lines with headlines like 10 businesses you can start in your pajamas. Those stories bring in a lot of clicks. The problem that I believe I figured out a long time ago, not that I'm the only one, is if you appeal to the wannabes, you're never going to get actual business owners like you guys. Whereas the reverse might be true. If you appeal to actual business owners and provide something of value to them, the wannabes may follow, and you may still get the traffic that you're hoping for, but you can't aim for the wannabes. And that's the dangerous thing that happens at a lot of publications, in my opinion.
That's a really interesting insight. How do you, going forward now that you've got a boss and, money at the table and folks, how do you escape that clickbait trap?
Well, for one thing, as I said, my boss, Toby, is not envisioning what I'm doing as the main source of profit within his business. Far from it. And at this point, I have a substantial budget and no pressure whatsoever in the first year to monetize.
Loren, what is his main reason for buying you?
He saw what happened with PPP. And I mean, this is an audience that he'd been targeting for some time, but it really crystallized for him that these are people who do not get the attention and support that they deserve. And he believes that this is a valuable thing to do, and that if we do it well, it will also perhaps indirectly help the business that he's building. But that's not the primary goal, although I'm sure he hopes and expects that whatever success I have will rub off on whatever he does.
What's the offering he's bringing? Because PPP is no longer there. So that's not a business model.
Let's hope we don't have to do any more of those.
It sounds like what he's hoping for is that you're a marketing channel and an awareness channel. So what is it that you're creating awareness of?
That's a little bit out of my bailiwick, and he's in the process of introducing that. And I don't want to overstep the bounds there, but it involves an app that will make it very easy for smaller businesses to run their financials and get paid and do all that good stuff.
I would say that if you look at today's morning report, there's two examples that illustrate what's out there in the media. And if you read it this morning, one of the articles talked about, I'm taking the exact words out of it, company raised prices on their T-shirts by about $20. Then sales fell and the company rolled back the price increases. Then there was a revolt. The chief brand officer said, there are so many holes in that. Like, did he raise the T-shirts from $20 to $60 or from $120 to $140? And how much did sales drop? There's so much information missing there. And then it wasn't written by the CEO or the CFO. It's the brand officer. So sales dropped. Okay.
No, it wasn't written by the brand officer.
But he was quoted in it. But the point is, he was quoted. The point is, this is feeding into the hysteria of business owners that we all face with, oh my God, if I raise my prices, it's going to screw up my business. And there's just no information there. It's just not good information. And it's just going to feed into people's paranoia about, so then if you did raise your price and you rolled it back, what do you do about the fact that your stuff's costing 30% more? Just live with it and go broke? I mean, it's crazy. And then the second one, at the end, there's a story about this academy that had an extremely good mission, very noble. They started schools for underprivileged kids. And it says, quote unquote, where it was hard was cash flow. This was a major disadvantage. Huh? They didn't have a cash flow problem. They have a profit problem. There's a huge difference between a cash flow problem and a profit problem. So once again, the story feeds into this narrative that everyone who has cash flow problems, that's the problem in business. And a cash flow problem is usually you've got too much inventory, too much receivables. Maybe you bought equipment, you paid cash. It's not a profit problem. So again, it's just bad information that's being put out there. And I believe if you had your own people working for you writing these articles, they could have asked the right questions and actually given something that was helpful to entrepreneurs. And I think this is extremely typical of what I read every day all over the place. They never ask the right questions. And I think you will.
That is an example, I think, to some extent. People do not tend to stay on this beat long enough to get comfortable with it. And it is challenging covering privately owned businesses. You can't go to Yahoo Finance and just, get all the numbers for a company the way you can with a public company. You can't get the opinions of, a dozen analysts and see what they're picking apart. You have to rely on who you talk to, and it's an acquired skill. And unfortunately, people, to the extent they acquire it, then tend to move on and do something else. All right, let's just take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. I'm here with Rob Levin, co-founder of Work Better Now, which provides businesses with highly talented virtual assistants. Rob, I've noticed that owners tend to have certain questions about virtual assistants. For example, what exactly can they do?
Yeah, Loren, we get this question all the time because people really know deep down that they need an assistant, but they're not exactly sure how it works and what they can do for them. I would say that our clients use our assistants in one of two ways. They will either use them much like I've been using my assistant for the past 8 years as an executive assistant, handling my calendar, which takes up so much time, email management, database, file management, personal tasks, creating documents for me. And then a lot of our clients basically operationalize our assistants. So we have assistants with titles like project manager, marketing associate, operations manager, and customer service representative.
I think some owners worry they'll spend more time managing their assistant than it would have taken them just to do the tasks themselves. How do you respond to that?
Right. This is a deadly trap, not only with assistants, but really with any employees, which is, I can do it faster myself. And the reality is you might be able to do it faster yourself. Of course, it's impossible to grow your business if you're doing everything yourself. I was very much of a similar mindset. And what I did with my assistant is I basically told him what needs to be done and had them document it. I hate documenting tasks, but I know the processes are so important. Now we have a manual full of my tasks. I only had to tell him once that he can follow time and time again. And if he's out, somebody else can follow. And also think about it this way. If you're a business owner making something like, let's say, $200,000 a year, which is about $100 an hour, you're basically paying somebody to do administrative work at $100 an hour if you're doing these tasks yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. What does it cost?
The cost is $1,900 a month. And as you know, Loren, we are offering 21 Hats readers and listeners $150 off per month for 3 months just by mentioning the word Loren. There are no contracts. Also very important for people to know.
Can you promise a return on that investment?
If you're not getting a return, something's not going right. all of our clients are not only getting a return with the first assistant they've hired, but many of our clients are now on their second, third, and fourth assistant.
Where can we learn more?
Workbetternow.com. And again, when you sign up for a 15-minute consult, just mention the word Loren, and we'll make sure to give that $150 off for each of the first 3 months.
Thanks, Rob. And we're back. All right, enough about me. Karen, let's talk about you. So much has changed in the last couple of years, and I'm wondering, you work with some amazing big brands, great big companies. I'm curious what they know that smaller businesses could learn from. Can you tell us what you're doing for them, and are there lessons in it that others could take advantage of?
I don't really know how to answer that. So what we do for a lot of the big tech companies is really around the innovation, like product innovation space. So it's solving problems in new ways that haven't been done before. So it's really, thinking out of the box. And so, I don't really have a good answer.
I have a website we sell through Jason Home. We do millions of dollars we sell nationally home accessories and home furnishings. Do you believe you do something that if I hung out in your offices long enough, I would be able to go, oh, how interesting. I need to do some of that.
No, totally not.
Totally not. Wow.
No, it's not like that at all. Everything is very, very, very specific. And we don't just randomly make stuff up for everyone just to go use. What we're doing is a client will come to us typically with a problem, and we solve it through research and design and strategy. And so it's usually addressing something very specific, and it's usually big and complex. Jay, you might come and say, like, I can't access people. People are now not going into stores. They're doing all their shopping at home. How do I can't figure out how to access them. And so we would, solve that problem. And then we all know what the answer is, like have an online store.
What she's saying is I don't have big enough problems for her, which is comforting to hear.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that you wouldn't. I'm saying that you would just have to come in and we would talk about what problem you're trying to solve, and then we would solve it for you. Your problem is different than anyone else's, and everyone else's is different than yours. And so it's not like there's like a magic formula that we're working on that would help everybody. And if there were, we couldn't tell you because that would be top secret.
No, that's interesting. I thought you did have somewhat of a formula of you would. I've always assumed you and everyone else that does things like you that you have some. Oh, we come in and we look at this, we look at that, and we figure out how to fine tune it. And that's interesting that people have to come to you with an issue and you figure out how to fix it. That's very different than I thought.
We're not fixing it. We're inventing stuff. We're creating. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. She's part of the creation economy as opposed to the problem solving economy. I mean, even though the expression might start out as a problem, my guess, Karen, is you're creating something new that may not have ever existed before.
Most of the time, that's the case. Yeah. Most of the time. I mean, you look at what Amazon's doing look annually, sort of what new stuff does Amazon come out with that we never thought we needed, or it's a totally different way to solve something that we didn't even know was a problem. And so it's that kind of stuff that we're working on. Like, did you know that you needed not only your groceries delivered, but you need it delivered by a robot and, and it's all automated and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like that. Those are the things that we're working on. It's like, did you know that it would be way better if you got your groceries and there was no checkout person? Like, a lot of our clients are looking at how we're doing things today and saying, is there a better way? And so our job is to come up with, through research, strategy, evidence-driven design, a better way, and in partnership with the client who's thinking about it, in collaboration with us. So we're coming at it from different angles. And so is there a better way? Like, do you really need to pick up your stuff and then go to a teller and check it all out? Like, why don't you just do it all at once and then just walk out? Like, we have enough technology nowadays that everyone has a smartphone. Why not just scan the item, put it in your cart, and then walk out of the store? And that's what's happening now. That's the Amazon Go store. But what we found in our research, that's a slow path to get there. People aren't quite ready for that because they feel like they're stealing, for example. And so, the world has to catch up to this new way of shopping. But I tell you, it's there. I mean, you go into any Apple store and there's no checkout place that all the salespeople in the whole room have the ability to check you out where you're standing. And that was like, whoa, that's crazy. But it's like, that makes total sense. That's a lot easier. There's no lineup. So it's things like that we work on, is how to sort of reshape our daily lives in a way that hopefully is better and easier and more efficient and a better user experience. That's our goal.
Are there things we can learn from the process that you go through to address it?
Yes, I say it every day, Loren. What do I always say? Come on. Talk to your customers. Never make it up yourself. Always talk to your customers, get their ideas, get their input.
All right, I'm in a fog.
Talk to the customer.
If you're going to design something that you want your customers or your future customers to use, you better understand them, and you better understand how they think. You need to understand their motivations. What's their context of use? Like, are they using your thing while they're driving, while they're walking their dog? Like, what world are they in when they're experiencing you or your product? And, really know, like, why do they come to you, and what makes them think, and how can you connect better with them through knowing their world and how they think? That's what you want to do.
Okay, that was very helpful.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
Before you said that, I was in just a cloud thinking, I just frame pictures or I sell furniture. I don't really get what you're talking about. But now that you pointed that out, that was very helpful. That was good. I'm going to go talk to some customers now.
How about the testing process? You come up with a good idea, or it's something like what you just described with Amazon Go, where there's some reluctance to accept it. How do you handle the testing of a product that you believe in, but that customers may not be quite ready for?
Well, that you're asking about adoption, which is different. So that all comes through exposure, marketing, making the pitch to people, why this is good and why they should try it. And then once they try it, they become early adopters, and then they become regular adopters. And then before you know it, the whole world is doing it. And in Amazon world, that's hyperspeed of how quickly they can get people to adopt crazy new ideas. Like, imagine like in the days when you couldn't walk into a room and ask Alexa to turn on the music. Like my daughter's like, well, how else would you do it? And so, that's not a very long amount of time since that came about.
Unless your wife's name was Alexa, in that case, I think it would have worked.
Problematic. Well, you can change it though. You can change it in the app to be something else. But in any event, that testing, we do a ton of testing, Loren. So we have prototypes. Like we did research where we followed that robot along, and then we watched the person receive the robot, take the groceries out of the robot, and then we would interview them. It's very deep, qualitative, one-on-one research. And so we say, what was that like? What was your experience like? Like, how did you feel? And, what did you love? What did you hate? Did it meet your needs? What are your hopes and wishes for it? We're looking at like Maslow's order of needs, and we want to make sure that it meets the basic requirements. And then what delights you about this thing? What's going to make you love this product? Because when people love your product, they're going to remember it. They're going to keep using it. They're going to refer it, all those things. And that's what our research does, is it fine tunes that. So they would say, okay, I loved everything about it, but this thing was weird. And so then we're like, okay, that's good feedback. And if we get that from, more than a handful of people, then we know it's a real thing, because you start seeing patterns and behavior after about 6 people, actually. And so then we go and we refine it. So then when they, blow it out to the market, we've got all kinds of refinement rounds in there of getting really deep qualitative research from people on this new crazy product. And does it work?
So if I had to cut to the chase, basically, you're the Wizard of Oz.
Well, funny that you say that, because that is a research method called the Wizard of Oz technique.
Okay, see, I got it. Which is
where you fake the functionality because it's actually not built yet. So there's actually someone sort of behind the curtain. Like, we did a whole study for Moen on a digital faucet for them. And so we had to have water coming out of the tap when the person gave a voice command, which wasn't built yet. And so we had like literally someone on the other side of the wall listening for when they said water, and then we would put on the tap and have the water go, and they'd be like, it's a miracle. But so you can do a lot of things.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Okay, see, I got it.
That's pretty great.
Hey, Karen, I imagine a lot of the listeners on this show are not going to be able to afford or are the right type of business for you. But if they're curious about this methodology you're talking about, which is kind of, I think, rooted in empathy and listening, what do you recommend that they explore, outside of your business? Is that design thinking books?
Yeah, it's what we do is it's well known. We didn't make it up. It's user-centered design, or originally is human factors design. It's sort of from that school, but it's there's loads of books on it. There's loads of great courses, like even just quick little courses you can take. But you don't even need to do any of that. All you need to do is something very simple, which is what Jay's going to do is just call up a few customers and say, what's your experience like in our store? Is there anything you would like to see that you're not seeing? Like, don't put too much pressure on them to have a big answer, but you just ask sort of like small leading questions, which is, is there anything that you wish was in the store? Or is there anything that you wish wasn't in the store? Is there anything, what did you love or what did you not love about your recent experience? And how can we serve you better? Like, just sort of little things like that. If everybody just did that, it would be a miracle, because most companies, imagine big clients come to us and they have spent $0 actually just chatting with their customers.
I've learned that I have never got a questionnaire from a great company. Whenever I keep getting questionnaires, how was our service? Was our bathroom clean? Everyone I've gotten, I believe, was not a great company, because I keep thinking to myself, if you have to ask the customer if their bathroom was clean, you're doing something wrong. Why don't you go to the bathroom and see what it looks like yourself? And the great companies that I deal with, I can't ever remember getting a questionnaire from them. So I think part of this is the great companies are paying attention and listening to customers. And the ones that think they're going to fix their business by sending out a questionnaire but then do nothing about it, it's not going to work.
Well, and also when you're sending out a survey, you're leading them, right? You're asking them certain questions. When you watch them interact, and this is part of our research, is we actually watch people, like when they receive their robot grocery delivery, we watch them and we watch their faces. Wow. And we watch their eyes bug out of their heads. And they may tell you later, like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like that was like a regular day. But you can see that they're totally freaked out, and their heart rates, they're breathing heavy. So we watch for all kinds of behavioral clues that help us understand, because often if somebody loves a brand, for example, like let's say Starbucks, and they had a bad experience ordering, their online mobile order was terrible for some reason, they might still tell you that was a really good experience because they love that brand so much, they have such loyalty that they take it upon themselves. It was my fault. I didn't press the right button, or I didn't do this or that. And in fact, of course, it's not their fault, because it should be so dead easy that there's no possibility for error. But instead they'll tell you like, oh no, it was fine. It was great. It was all me. And so we watch a lot of these clues just to see, okay, their body language is not, congruent with what they're saying, and so let's try to get at that.
I do that every day with customers that come in to pick up their framing, as an example. You can stand there and watch them, and you can get a good feel for, we doing a good job? Are they going, oh my God, I'm doing it in a very no-tech way.
But low-tech is the way to do it. I agree.
So you talked about talking to customers versus surveys. Can you help us understand, why you do that methodology, why you go there first versus SurveyMonkey, which I see this a lot.
You don't want to assume that you know what the problem is. And so what we'll do is we do the qualitative research first to really try to uncover where are the specific pain points in a process, for example, or in picking up your frame. It's a perfect example. If you were to say send out a survey and ask like 3 really specific questions, you already are sort of leading the witness by assuming you know what the problems are. But if you're like Jay and you just stand there and you look at their body language, you look at, are they smiling when they're looking at those pictures? Like, pay attention. Those things matter. And then you go in and you casually say, like, I noticed that you didn't look super happy when you were looking at those pictures. Could you tell me more about how you're feeling? And then they start saying, well, I was really hoping for, and you would never know that unless you ask them. So you have to do it in a really, this is psychology, and this is, it's real research in that you don't want to put words in their mouth. You want to just listen, just like ask a few questions, ask them how they're feeling, and then listen. And then once you start gathering that kind of data where you have a sense like, oh, okay, we think it's really in the tape that we're using to package the frame, it looks like it's really cheap and it's not put on very well. Let's say that lots of people are saying that same thing. Then after that, you could send out a survey saying, what is your experience with the tape on our packaging? And they would say, oh my God. But you don't want to get specific until you've got a broad, view of the whole thing.
That's really helpful. I think that a lot of small businesses go to the silver bullet, and the silver bullet is sending out a survey and it injects all these biases in it, right? It's like you end up surveying the people that you want to get that give you the answer you want to hear.
You're validating something that you think is true and you don't really know.
In my own low-tech way, it's very interesting to me because I totally get what she does now.
Yeah, Jay, and you are absolutely dead on. When you're standing there and you're watching people, that's the real deal. Like what you're doing is exactly what you should be doing. Because what you want is for someone to have a great, user experience with your business, every aspect of it. So like when you brought in your pictures, did they handle them with the love and care that you feel for those pictures? Because I know that in your business, it's very emotional, right? Like these are memories. The way people want to be treated is very specific and important in your business, I'm sure. And it's different for how they want to be treated when they go to Target. And so, you need to understand what that looks like and what that feels like for them.
So, Karen, I would just note that I asked you what we could learn, what smaller businesses could learn from what you guys do, and you weren't sure how to answer the question. You ended up giving us a fabulous answer.
Oh, good.
That's the magic of 21 hats.
All right. We only have a little bit of time left. Jay, I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things. First of all, the last few times I've asked you about your interest in doing an ESOP plan, employee stock ownership, you've given me one of two answers. Either you say, why wouldn't I do that? Or you say, why would I do that? I'm wondering where you are on that today.
My whole thing is I need to understand things, and sometimes it takes a while to process it. I feel very good that after a year of thinking about it, going to, I've been to 3-4 seminars, talked to lots of people. I am very comfortable that I'm sure ESOPs work wonderfully in many situations, but it's not for me at this situation. I'm not leaving the business. I don't need cash out. And part of it is the amount of federal tax you would save by ESOPing. Half of that's going to get eaten up by the fees between the accounting and the legal fees. So I am very comfortable that for me at the moment, it doesn't make any sense. And I absolutely went back and forth on it. But I did a lot of talking to a lot of people. And I really do believe that. I'm sure there's cases where it's an incredible thing, but not for me at this point.
But you're now focusing on a slightly different strategy.
Yes. So here's it did help because it made me think about my employees, about the retirement, about them leaving with some money. My CFO left after 22 years. He retired. I brought a new person in. So we're looking at everything with a new set of eyes. And we looked at our 401k plan, and I realized I think I can do better with my 401k plan. The matching thing, I believe, is inherently unfair to if you have a diverse workforce that goes everywhere from people making 6 figures down to 30. If you're doing matching, you're basically helping the people that have a lot of money get more money. And the people at the bottom who can't save as much, they're not getting much. So I'm looking into restructuring my 401k plan and getting a safe harbor, it's called, so that people don't have limits on how much they can put into it.
Jay, isn't the key if you go the safe harbor route that you commit to paying 3% for all of your employees?
That's one way, but this is what I had to figure out, which I had to explain to them. So I take my whole payroll and I just basically multiply it by 3%. But if you've got a lot of highly paid people to work for you, you could cut a deal with them and say, look, instead of giving you the bigger raise, I'm going to give you this 3%, which is better for you because you can totally put it all into the 401k plan. It's a win-win. So it's not really 3% of your whole payroll. For the highly paid people, you could probably work out a deal with them to, not to take it out of the raise. And then maybe you give a little less raise. I think there's some ways of mitigating that. But at the end of the day, it certainly would be a good, and listen, I've been in business 43 years. I'm in a different place than a lot of people. I couldn't have done this 20 years ago. But if you can do it and you're profitable, it would really be a great thing if you knew that when your people retired, they were leaving with hundreds of thousands of dollars in their 401k. That would be an ideal thing. And I think there's ways of maneuvering that.
I think we should just explain. It isn't the safe harbor aspect of this is that it gives you safe harbor from the government coming after you and saying that your plan is discriminatory.
Right. It's not that they come after you. What the government doesn't want is 401k plans just to be for the top people. They want to make sure it's spread around. So they go through discrimination tests and they figure out how many people are in it, how much they're putting into it. So by safe harboring, the government goes, okay, you can do whatever you like. You're covering everyone.
Because in that instance, you're paying everybody 3%.
Right. Or there's other ways of doing it. Talk to your provider. It's worth having that conversation. And what I like about it is I'm taking a little piece from the ESOP thing and putting it into this. And I think the end result will be similar, that I'll be able to make sure my employees are taken care of. My average person has been here 11 years. I got lots of people that have been here 20 some years. I would like to know when my people retire, they're leaving with a nice nest egg.
Shawn, I feel bad. We haven't really gotten to you. And the clock is ticking.
I got to harass Jay, so
he had his shot there.
No, and hey, look, I actually really love that dialogue because it went from like the high level of Karen talking about a methodology, which I think a lot of people listening to this show could really benefit from in terms of thinking through the customer's perspective and talking to customers. And then it went to like Jay's experience and how he does it, which is like a really solid way of doing it. And what I was trying to argue against, which I see so much of, is folks sending out surveys. I just think it's like the worst place to start from.
It's lame. I mean, this is what I would start with, which is what I do. I make sure every one of my employees, every single one of them knows, if a customer ever says something to you that they're bothered by something or that you think please make sure you tell us. We want to know about it. And it works. They tell us and we know about it. And sometimes we call the customer. It's like, let your employee, because I'm telling you, as a customer, here I went to a big department store. I bought some light bulbs. Of the 6 I bought, 4 were broken because they were packaged badly. I took it to the return department. I told her, and you could just read her. She couldn't care less.
She doesn't care.
She put it right back on the shelf. Someone else is going to buy the broken bulb tomorrow. She didn't say, oh, thanks for telling me. No comment whatsoever. And that's the way big business, not all of it, but that's the way some big businesses are running. Like, make sure your employees know, hey, you're on the front line. Please tell me if you hear anything that's valuable.
Or go one step further with those employees and instead of just saying, tell me if you hear something, ask them to ask their customers, how they're doing or how they feel or what they think.
Yeah.
Well, basically, Jay, you're highlighting the vicious cycle of corporate America, right? Which is they don't treat their employees well. So their employees don't really care about the customer experience. So then the customers have a bad experience. So then broken light bulbs end up on the thing. And so then they have these additional costs that are hidden within the organization. And so, small businesses have a really amazing opportunity because they can create a culture where their employees feel valued.
And you know what we call that? Instead of vicious cycle, we call it the virtuous cycle.
Yeah, exactly.
And it goes the other way. Your employees feel good about taking care of customers. The customers feel good. And now they feel good because we're taking care of customers. How great is that?
All right. My thanks to Shawn Busse, Karen Clark-Cole, and Jay Goltz. As always, thanks for sharing and thanks for helping me get to this point where I think we have some exciting things ahead for 21 Hats.
Don't change the name.
Thank you, Karen. Wait, don't leave yet. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like the 21 Hats owners to address, send it to me by replying to your morning report or by email at loren@21hats.com. That's LOREN @21hats.com. Do it now before you forget. And don't be afraid to tell Jay what you really think. He can take it. And if you got something out of this conversation, help us reach more business owners. Tell a friend. Subscribe and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to the Morning Report at 21hats.com. This episode was produced by Jess Thuberon, founder of Blank Word Productions. Okay, now you can leave. Thanks for listening, everyone.